Everyone, this is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video is stitch number 4 in our year-long crochet along, the Harmony Sample Blanket Crochet Along. And what we're doing is each month we're doing a stitch on our blanket and adding it to make a complete sample blanket with 12 different stitches. Now the first stitch that we did was this granny, the alternate granny stitch. Then we did V-stitches. We did crossover stitches next. And today we're going to do bobble stitches for our 4th stitch. Now, if you want to find all of the stitches as I put them out, I'll put that link in the notes underneath the videos. I have a page all set up. All you have to do is click that link and it will take you there. It will have all the videos as well as the blog links so that you can also check those stitch counts, and there'll be a few extra pictures to help you out. Now this one also has its own blog, and I'll put that blog link underneath this video as well. So here is what we have stitched on our blanket so far. We began with the alternate granny squares, and I did 4 rows on mine. And remember, you can do as many rows on your blanket as you would like. Then we did a row in between just to separate the stitches. This is a row of double crochets. And then we did some V-stitches, and I did 3 rows of V-stitches. And I like doing them in different colors so that the V really pops out. Then we did a row of single crochets, it looks like. And then we did our cross stitches. Today we're going to be doing a row of half double crochet, a row of bobble stitches, a row of half double crochet, and then a row of bobble stitches. And what you're going to need is, of course, worsted weight number 4 yarn. I'm going to be using 4 different colors. I'm going to use this bright green, this creamy color, a brown, and a blue, because I'm going to do each row in a different color. Now you can do them all in the same color. You can do it in variegated. You can do it in any colors that you want for your sample blanket. And remember, it's a great way to use up some of your leftover colors that you have laying around in your yarn stash. And just to repeat, we're doing our entire blanket in worsted weight number 4 yarns. Alrighty, now we're going to be stitching with our H hook, and the H hook is a 5.00 millimeter hook, and we'll be stitching the whole blanket with that hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in your ends, and of course you'll need a pair of scissors. Now before we get started, I want to remind you that if you added additional stitches to make your blanket wider, you need to make sure you add the same amount of stitches so your blanket stays the same width. And of course you can add as many rows of each stitch as you would like. It's up to you, because this is a sample blanket, so you can do as many rows as you like and make it as wide as you like. All right, I'm adding my new color in. I'm going with just cream. I'm going to chain 2 because we're going to stitch a row of half double crochets across this cross stitch row. Every stitch will have some sort of a stitch in between before we change to the new stitch. Sometimes it's a single, sometimes it's a double, and sometimes it's a half double. Might even be a triple. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, so this half double crochet counts as our first stitch. So we're going to place a half double crochet in each of the stitches across. Now these first ones are easy because they're just basic double crochets. We have 4 stitches on the end, And now we're going to place a half double crochet in each of the cross stitches. Now the cross stitches can be a little confusing to know where to put your stitch. So if you push your work up, you can see these loops on the top, and that will help you know where to put your stitch. So yarn over, go through those loops, and stitch your half double crochet. We're stitching 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. And like I said, this just gives us a foundation for our bobble stitch rows. And if you're making your blanket the same size as mine, you'll have 74 half double crochets. I completed my row of 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet across. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. I'm all done with my cream color, and I'm going to join in my blue. And we'll join that in the same way. We'll pull a loop through, snug that down, snug the blue one down, and chain 2. And turn our work. All right, so now we have the foundation to work our row of bobble stitches. Now it's not going to be a complete row of bobble stitches. We're going to have some half double crochets in between. So our chain 2 here counts as our first half double crochet. We're going to place a half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we'll place 2 more, so we have a total of 4 half double crochets. Our chain 2 counted as our first half double crochet, and then we stitched 3 more. All right, are you ready to do a bobble stitch? So the way that we're going to be doing a bobble stitch, there are lots of different ways of doing them, and we're going to be doing what I call a triple bobble stitch. We're going to wrap our yarn around our hook twice. We're going to go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. Yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Yarn over and go through the second 2 loops. But don't go through that last loop. We're going to leave those on our hook. We're going to yarn over twice, go right in that same stitch, and pull up a loop. Yarn over, go through just the first 2, yarn over and go through just the second 2. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. We're going to leave those right there. Yarn over twice, go right back in that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2. So now we have 4 loops on our hook, and you can see it looks like we have 3 triple stitches here. We're going to yarn over and we're going to go through all 4 of those loops. That's our bobble stitch. We're going to push it forward, and then we're going to stitch a half double crochet right in this next stitch. All right, see how that makes a bobble? I like them nice and puffy. So here's our bobble stitch, and we made a 1 half double crochet, and we're going to make 4 more half double crochets, so that we have 5 half double crochets, 1 in each of the next 5 stitches. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to make another bobble stitch. Yarn over twice, go in the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through the second 2, and leave those 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over twice, and remember, don't pull this too tightly or you won't be able to get your stitches through. Alright, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And we'll do that again. Yarn over twice, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. Now we have those 3 that look like 3 triples, plus an extra loop, so we have 4 loops. Yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. I just sort of push it over and then stitch a half double crochet in the next stitch. And then we'll stitch 4 more half double crochets, 1 in each of the next 4. This way we have a total of 5 half double crochets in between our bobble. Now I want to talk to you about front and back real quick. Now for me, this is the back of my blanket, but it's up to you which side you decide you want to be your front or back. So since this is the back of my blanket, I want my bobbles to be pushed to the front so they stick through on this side. Okay, so all you have to do is just gently push them forward like that. All right, it's up to you which side is your front and which side is your back. I just want the other side to be my front. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half double crochets, and let's stitch another bobble stitch. All right, now since I want this to be the front, I'm just going to push it forward and stitch my half double crochets. All right, let me see how many I got here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 1 more. And this is the way that the pattern will work for this row. We're going to stitch a bobble and then 5 half double crochets, a bobble, then 5 half double crochets, a bobble, 5 half double crochets, all the way across this row. So here's my 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll show you how to stitch another bobble. And I'm pushing them through because that's the front of my blanket. And that's the way this row will work. 5 half double crochets between our bobbles. And we'll just work this across. And then when we get to the end, we're going to stitch a row of half double crochets in between our bobbles. There's my bobble and 5 half double crochets. 1, 2, so I finished this row of bobbles. I stitched my 5 half double crochets, and now we're going to end with 1 half double crochet in those last 4 stitches. Make sure you stitch in the top of that chain 2 that counted as 1 half double crochet. Snug those down. Now we're going to cut our yarn. There we go. And I'm going to change to my next color. Now remember, you don't have to change colors if you don't want to. I just like lots of colors in my sample blanket. Alright, so now I'm going to snug down the brown one and chain 2. I'm going to turn our work, and there you can see all those bobble stitches that I made. I love them. They're so much fun. Alright, so this next row, all we're going to do is place 1 half double crochet and each half double crochet across. Our chain 2 counted as our first half double crochet. So we'll go in our next stitch and stitch a half double crochet. And we'll stitch 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. Now, it can be a little confusing where to put that stitch in a bobble stitch. And so when I get there, I'm going to show you what to do. Make sure you put 1 in each half double crochet. There's 1 more. And then you'll look at the top of the bobble stitch and you'll see there's a braid or a set of 2 loops, and that's where you're going to put your half double crochet. That way we don't add any stitches or make our bobble stitch lay funny or pucker up. And see how that looks? A nice even row of half double crochets. The main thing is you make sure that you get every one of those half double crochet stitches or you'll be off on your count. And then only place 1 stitch in the back of that bobble. Here's those loops that we'll stitch in, and then in each half double crochet. And that's how that row should look. So I'm going to continue on stitching my 1 half double crochet and each stitch across, and then I'll catch back up with you and we'll do another row like this one with the bobble stitches. I completed my row of half double crochets, and now I'm going to stitch another row like our bobble stitch row. I'm going to change to this bright green yarn. And again, you don't have to change colors if you don't want to. I'm going to chain 2, make sure everything's snug down, and boy do I have some yarn here I'm going to have to weave in, huh? Alrighty, so we're going to turn our work again, and again I'll be working on the back side of my blanket, but if you're working on the front side, it's just fine. Remember, it's up to you which side you want to be your front or back. Alright, so we're going to place a half double crochet in the first 4. Now our chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet here, so we'll go in the next stitch and stitch a half double crochet, and then we'll stitch 2 more. So that we have those 4 stitches, counting our chain 2 at the beginning of our row. So the next stitch we're going to do is our bobble stitch. So we'll yarn over twice, go in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And we'll just repeat that, just like we did on our other row of bobble stitches. And then we'll yarn over and go through all 4 stitches. If this is the front, push it to the front. If this is the back of your work, push it to the front. It's up to you. Remember which side you want for the front of your blanket. Now we're going to stitch those 5 half double crochets. And if you look, your bobbles should be lined up together. All right, let's stitch another bobble. There we go. I'm going to push it to my front and stitch 5 half double crochets. Alrighty. And that's the way this row should look with your bobbles lined up. Now, if you're going to stitch more rows, make sure you stitch a row of half double crochet in between your bobble stitch rows. And that's how stitch 4 is, the bobble stitch for our sample blanket. I'm going to go ahead and finish this row, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So this is how your rows should look. Whether you left your bobbles on one side or push them to the other. Remember, it's super easy to do. You just gently push them to whichever side you want your bobble on. Okay, now you should have a row of half double crochet, a row with half double crochets with bobbles, a row of half double crochets, and a row with half double crochets with bobbles. Now you can make as many rows as you like. Just remember, you're going to need that half double crochet row in between each of the rows. So the last thing that needs to be done is weaving in our ends. Now I'm not going to weave in the last end because that's where I'll join for my next section on my blanket. And I usually snug that down, and then I'll pull that loop nice and big. That way it doesn't come out and it's ready for my next stitch. Now to weave in all these ends, I really recommend that you do it after each stitch that you add to your blanket, rather than doing it at the end where it can seem extremely overwhelming. What I do is I just thread that end on a needle and I go right in that color that I'm working with. And you really want to stay within that color or you'll end up with it showing through. And we don't want some of this brown yarn to show through on some of that green yarn. And I go one way, I go back the other, and if I have enough yarn left, I'll go back again. And I try to go through stitches and fibers. Now that came off, so I'm going to push it through a little bit and just rethread that on my needle. There we go. Oh, didn't get the whole thing. We'll try again. There we go. And we'll just pull that through. That way, we don't want to end up with our string out. We want to end up with it in. That way we can clip it off and it's all done. And I'll need to do that with these other colors for a nice finished edge. So this is how it should look. It's all tidied up on both ends, except for the one we're going to need for our next stitch. So that's how we're going to do our bobble stitch row. Now next month, May, will be stitch number 5, and we're going to learn how to add some shell stitches to our blanket. So I guess I'll see you next month for our Harmony sample blanket crochet along.